Hello everyone, James O'Reilly here and Siobhan Ashby to take you through the federal budget wrap-up. Siobhan, a lot to get through this morning.
Hell of a lot, James. I think it's probably best we dive straight into it.
Agreed, let's do this. We've got 7 big things that we want to talk with you about this morning. Let's jump in. The first one is the fact that our net debt is going to go up to just this much under $1 trillion by 2024. I don't think it's an accident that the government has done everything that they can to keep this at this figure at 996 billion instead of $1 trillion. Having said that, we've talked about this before from a client perspective. Contextually, this is a walloping amount of debt, but it is a manageable amount of debt, and I don't think that this is going to be something that necessarily creates a huge amount of short-term economic difficulty for our country. I think we move on. We've got a lot to get through.
Tax breaks. Who doesn't love a tax cut? This one is particularly cool because it focuses on the lower middle income earners, which frankly, let's be honest, need it the most. The way that it's working is that the 19% tax bracket is increasing from $37,000 per annum income to $45,000 per annum, and the 32.5% tax bracket is increasing from 90k to 120, which is really quite significant. So this was part of the personal income tax plan that was due to arrive in the 2022-23 financial year. The government actually wants to bring it back to 1 July of this year. So what does that mean for anyone who's within this income bracket? Your employer is not about to hand you a check for a tax refund, I dare say. However, what's going to happen is that as soon as this is passed through Parliament, your income, the bottom dollar, will increase. You'll get more money in your pocket. And when it comes to tax time at the end of this financial year and you do your tax return, you're a lot more likely to get a tax refund for essentially overpaying tax from 1 July up until now. So it's something that's really, really exciting, and it's going to affect a lot of Australians very quickly.
Good numbers too. For $1,000 and $2,000 for middle incomes is a lovely amount to get back.
It's not a small amount, that's for sure.
Let's go to superannuation. This is actually a really good scheme. We're not going to have auto creation of funds anymore. If your employer sends some money to a Host Plus or a Cbus or a Rest, they're not just going to get the money and say, oh yeah, sure, we'll just set up an account for Joe Blogs here because this money must have come here deliberately. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe you just didn't notify your employer in time that you wanted your superannuation paid to a different fund. This is one of those archaic things that's still creating rules that's still allowing people to have multiple funds. The government is going to get a lot harsher on ensuring that ideally your one superannuation fund should follow you so that you don't end up with a new fund every time you sign up with a new employer. It's a great initiative. There's also a government site that's coming through that's going to give a transparent overview of superannuation funds and their performance. And the need for every super fund to undertake an annual performance test to basically show your members that you're doing what you're supposed to do. So all of this is going to create better transparency around this system. We love transparency, so happy days.
On to some other reforms that aren't necessarily hugely financially related, but definitely hugely important. There's been a mental health plan boost. So currently there's 10 available sessions that are subsidised by Medicare for people to see a psychologist. That's now been increased to 20, which is just amazing for all of those Australians that need help, as so many do at the moment. Age pension recipients are going to receive a little bit of a boost in $500 total, so that's two $250 payments, one that's due to come out in December and the following in March. And finally, something that is super, super amazing, I think there's going to be an additional 23,000 home care packages to support elderly Australians who want to stay at home and not go into aged care. So no doubt that this has partly come about as a result of the upcoming Royal Commission. But whatever the reason for it, it's incredibly exciting, and it's really good to see that our elderly Australians will be more considered and taken care of.
Excellent outcomes. There'll be some job seeker, job keeper, job maker. What is job maker and how is this different to the others? This is a completely new scheme, job maker, and it is a government incentive that's designed to target the hiring of unemployed people between the ages of 16 and 35. You'll essentially get, if you are to employ someone for more than 20 hours a week in this age bracket, and if that individual has been on job seeker or youth allowance or parenting payments, so essentially not working in 1 month of the previous 3, then you will qualify to receive a credit of $200 per week that they are hired for if they're aged between 16 and 29, and $100 per week aged between 30 and 35. The payments are made quarterly in arrears. So to use a real example as to what this might look like, we hire Jess. Jess is 23 years old. She was previously on JobSeeker. We are going to receive $200 a week as a result of that hire, which is about $10,000 a year. So if it's paid quarterly in arrears, at the end of every quarter, we'll receive about $2,500 as a refund for essentially having hired Jess in this situation. I think this is a great scheme. This makes a lot of sense. It's super targeted to make sure that the unemployed are employed again, which makes a lot of sense, of course. And also on those numbers, it tends to, if you were thinking about hiring someone at 12 or 13 hours a week, it really does encourage you to get up to the 20. That might actually be self-funded to do the last 7 or 8 hours. So a very, very good scheme. My only concern here is just, do we get this sort of inverse discrimination where someone under 30 years old is going to become more desirable if they are not in a full-time role right now, because that means that the person who is about to hire them or the business is going to get that $10,000 amount a year. Whereas if you're hiring someone that already is full-time employed and they go from one role to another, then the business doesn't get that entitlement because they were never on these JobSeeker or youth allowance or parenting payments. So we'll learn more as we go, but on the whole, I think this is a very intelligent and targeted scheme.
More support given to Australian businesses. This one is particularly cool and something that I think is just going to be so beneficial for so many businesses. What's happening is that the government is allowing businesses that make losses over the next few financial years up to 21-22 to actually use to deduct against any healthy profits made from 18-19 financial year onwards. Now, this is amazing because it's no secret that a lot of businesses have been really hit hard with the coronavirus. So as a quick example of what that might mean, if businesses have made healthy profits over the last few financial years, and then let's say you make a $100,000 loss, you can use that loss to deduct against your previous profits and receive a $30,000 tax deduction. So this is something that's really, really amazing initiative and something that will really put a lot of money back into the pockets of these struggling businesses.
Yeah, awesome scheme. Yeah, very, very cool.
Fantastic.
Lastly, from a business perspective, we have our own little To Infinity and Beyond set up here. The instant asset write-off is going from 150K to no limit, infinity. You have to have a business with a turnover under 5 billion, which is 99% of businesses. The asset must be used or installed before 30 June 2022. What does this mean? In the past, if you wanted to buy an asset for your business that was worth, say, 300,000, you couldn't write it off as a tax deduction in that 1 year. You had to write it off over the life of the asset. So that might have a 10-year life or a 5-year life, which means that you divide 300,000 by 5 and then write that off incrementally. Not anymore. Now you just get, as soon as you get the money or get the asset used or installed before 30 June 2022, even if it were $10 million, you have a $10 million tax deduction at that point, subject to the use of the asset. So again, this is just trying to flood money into the economy and make sure that businesses are a better set up going forward. What do you think, Siobhan? Is it a good budgie?
Look, I think a lot of the initiatives are pretty fantastic. I think that it's really, really exciting that there's a lot of focus that's going into really helping businesses and really focus on jobs and getting people employed again. Having said that, though, the way that it'll all pan out, there's a lot of assumptions. It really does hinge on how coronavirus also pans out over the next few months or years. It assumes that there's going to be a vaccine available next year. So whilst there's a lot of positive things in this budget, it's also a bit of who knows at this point, to be honest. Well
said. Yeah, I just can't quite get my head around exactly how we're going to pay for this. we had a budget repair levy a little while ago. You might remember, not too long ago, of course, and that was the intention was to get us back and repay all the debt that we incurred in when we had when we had this budget deficit. I'm just not so sure how we're going to foot this, but nevertheless, that's future us problem. Right now, we do need to get out of this and make sure that businesses are secure and make sure that people are paying less tax and able to look after themselves. So similarly, I'm pretty comfortable. Guys, that's it. Thank you so much for watching and getting across some of the big changes in the budget this year. For those of you that, and there are quite a few of you, that these reforms will have a lot of impact. So we're going to be in touch and we'll talk more soon.
Thanks, guys.
See you later, guys.